I was excluded for being gay. My desk was littered with hateful notes. My apartment was vandalized with a vile word. Then a mysterious text changed everything. I'm Michael, a 32-year-old office worker in Seattle, Washington. For nearly a decade, I'd considered Ethan my closest friend at work. We'd grab beers after long shifts, share dumb inside jokes, and even took a road trip to the Oregon coast one summer. He was the kind of guy who'd always have your back, or so I thought. Everything changed when I found out I wasn't invited to his wedding. My stomach dropped when I saw the invite list posted in the break room, my name nowhere to be found. I figured it was a mistake. I mean, 10 years of friendship, right? How do you skip over that? I cornered Ethan by the coffee machine that afternoon. My hands were sweaty, my voice tight. Hey man, is there a mix-up with the wedding invites? I asked, trying to keep it light. His face froze, like he'd been caught stealing. He looked away, rubbing the back of his neck. No mix-up, Mike, he said, his voice low. It's Emma's call. Her parents, they're old school. They wouldn't be cool with, your lifestyle, my lifestyle. The words hit like a punch. I'm gay. I've been out since college. Ethan knew that, never had an issue, or so he'd let me believe. I stood there, my chest tight, the hum of the office fading into a dull roar. My lifestyle? I repeated, my voice shaking. You're saying I'm not welcome because I'm gay? Ethan wouldn't meet my eyes. It's not me, man. It's Emma's parents. They'd make a scene, ruin the day. You get it, right? I didn't get it. I felt like the floor had vanished beneath me. 10 years of friendship, and he couldn't even stand up for me? You could have told me yourself, I said, barely holding it together. Instead of letting me find out like this, he shrugged, like it was no big deal. I didn't want to hurt you, Mike. We're still good, yeah? He clapped my shoulder, like that fixed everything. I pulled away, my throat burning. No, Ethan, we're not good. I walked back to my desk, my head spinning. The rest of the day, I just stared at my computer, replaying his words. My kind wasn't welcome. It wasn't just about a wedding. It was about being erased, like I didn't matter, like I was less than. That night, I sat in my apartment in Capitol Hill, staring out at the Seattle skyline. The Space Needle glowed in the distance, but all I could feel was this hollow ache. I thought about texting Ethan, demanding answers, but what was the point? He'd made his choice. I poured a glass of whiskey and tried to shake it off, but the hurt clung to me. I'd trusted him, shared pieces of my life with him, and now this? It wasn't just betrayal, it was humiliation. The next few weeks were torture. Ethan acted like nothing happened, cracking jokes in meetings while I sat there, silent, burning. Coworkers started noticing. You and Ethan fighting? One asked. I just shook my head, not trusting my voice. I didn't want pity. I wanted to be seen as equal, not some problem to tiptoe around. I kept waiting for an apology, some sign he regretted it, but none came. Instead, he started avoiding me, his eyes darting away whenever I walked by. It was like I'd become invisible. And then, a month after the wedding, he called, out of nowhere. My phone lit up with his name, and my heart sank. I knew whatever he wanted, it wasn't going to fix this. A month after Ethan's wedding, my phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. His name flashed on the screen. I froze, my coffee mug halfway to my lips. Part of me wanted to ignore it, but curiosity won out. I answered, my voice flat. What do you want, Ethan? His tone was overly cheerful, like he was trying to sell me something. Hey Mike, been a while, huh? Look, I need a favor. My grip tightened on the phone. A favor? After he'd cut me out of his life like I was nothing? He didn't wait for me to respond. Emma and I are going on our honeymoon, a month-long trip to Hawaii. We need someone to check on our house in Fremont, feed our cat, water the plants, twice a day. You're the only one I trust, man. I laughed, sharp and bitter. You trust me? That's rich, Ethan. You didn't trust me enough to invite me to your wedding. Silence hung heavy on the line. Then he sighed, like I was being difficult. Come on, Mike. That was Emma's parents, not me. Don't make this personal. My blood boiled. Personal? You let your fiance's family decide I'm not good enough because I'm gay. That's as personal as it gets. He groaned, like I was overreacting. Look, I'm sorry, okay? But this is different. If you don't help, we're screwed. The trip's non-refundable. 75 grand down the drain. I leaned against the counter, my head pounding. Not my problem, I said, my voice low. You made it clear where we stand. That's when he snapped. His voice turned ugly, slurring slightly, like he'd been drinking. You're so selfish, Mike. Always playing the victim. You think you're better than everyone else, don't you? My jaw clenched. I wanted to fire back, but then another voice cut in Emma, sharp and cold. Michael, you're ruining everything. Ethan's a mess because of you. He can't sleep, can't focus. You're destroying his career over this. I blinked, stunned. Destroying his career? They were the ones who'd turned on me. Emma, I said, forcing calm. I'm not doing anything to Ethan. I'm just not cleaning up your mess. She scoffed. You've been his friend for years. You're throwing that away over one little thing? I couldn't believe her. One little thing? You banned me from your wedding because of who I am. That's not little. That's you saying I'm not equal. She paused, then her voice softened, manipulative. The wedding's over, Michael. Can't we move past this? We need you. I shook my head, though she couldn't see it. No, you don't get to treat me like garbage and then ask for favors. Find someone else. Emma's tone turned icy. You're making a mistake. People talk, Michael. You're not looking good here. The line went dead. I set the phone down, my hands trembling. The nerve of them, acting like I owed them anything. I poured another coffee, trying to steady myself, but the anger wouldn't fade. They'd shown me exactly what our friendship was worth nothing. The next day, Ethan called again, begging, please, Mike, no one else can do it. it. If you don't, we'll lose everything. His voice cracked, but I felt no pity. You lost me when you chose prejudice over friendship, I said, and hung up. I sat on my couch, staring at the rain streaking my window. Seattle's gray sky mirrored how I felt betrayed, alone. But I wasn't going to cave, not after what they'd done. Little did I know, this was just the beginning. The weeks after that call were hell. At work, Ethan's demeanor flipped like a switch. Gone was the fake friendliness. He'd pass me in the hallway, his eyes cold, muttering under his breath. I caught fragments slurs, sharp and venomous, meant to cut. I tried to focus on my spreadsheets, my emails, but the air in our Seattle office felt thick with tension. My desk became a battleground. One morning, I found a sticky note taped to my monitor. Freak. My stomach churned. I glanced around, but no one met my eyes. Was it Ethan? Someone else he'd roped in? The next day, my mouse was missing, replaced with a crumpled photo of me from the company picnic, my face scratched out. I felt eyes on me, whispers trailing as I walked to the break room. He's so sensitive, someone murmured. I clenched my fists, my nails biting into my palms. I wasn't imagining this. It was real, deliberate. I went to HR that afternoon, my heart pounding. The rep, Karen, barely looked up from her computer. Michael, are you sure it's not just a prank? She asked, her tone dripping with dismissal. I slid the defaced photo across her desk. This isn't a prank, it's harassment, she sighed, pushing her glasses up. I'll look into it, but you know how things get blown out of proportion. I left her office feeling smaller, like I was the problem, but I wasn't going to let it slide. I started documenting everything, photos of the notes, screenshots of snide emails, timestamps of every incident. My phone became a digital vault of evidence. Each night, I'd sit in my Capitol Hill apartment, uploading files, my hands shaking. I felt like I was preparing for war. It got worse. One morning, I found a Bible verse pinned to my chair, Leviticus 18:22. I didn't need to look it up to know what it meant. My throat tightened, but I ripped it down, snapping a picture before tossing it. Ethan was at his desk, smirking, his eyes locked on me. I wanted to confront him, to scream, but I knew he'd twist it, make me look unhinged. Instead, I went back to HR. This time, Karen's response was sharper. Michael, we've talked to Ethan. He says he's got nothing to do with it. Without proof, there's not much we can do. I stared at her, disbelief burning in my chest. Proof? I'm showing you proof. I gestured to my phone, the photos, the notes. She shrugged. It's circumstantial. Could be anyone. I walked out, my head spinning. Circumstantial? It was Ethan. I knew it in my gut. That evening, I found a rainbow keychain on my desk, snapped in half. My hands shook as I photographed it. This wasn't just harassment, it felt like a threat. The office became a minefield. Co-workers I'd once laughed with now avoided me, their glances heavy with judgment. Ethan spread rumors, I could tell. I overheard someone whisper, he's causing drama over nothing. Nothing? My life was unraveling. I started parking my car 2 blocks away, checking over my shoulder as I walked to the office. Every creak in my apartment made me jump. I wasn't sleeping, barely eating. The weight of it all pressed down, suffocating. One Friday, I found a new note, scrawled in red ink. You'll regret this. My heart stopped. I snapped a photo, my fingers trembling, and stormed to HR. This is a threat, I said, shoving my phone in Karen's face. She frowned, but her voice stayed flat. We'll file a report, Michael, but you need to stay calm. Stay calm? I wanted to scream. Instead, I nodded, my jaw tight, and left. I wasn't imagining this. I wasn't crazy, but the more I pushed, the more alone I felt. Ethan was winning, and I didn't know how much longer I could hold on. The harassment at work didn't stop, but I never expected it to follow me home. One rainy Seattle evening, after another soul-crushing day dodging Ethan's smirks and HR's apathy, I pulled into my Capitol Hill apartment complex. My keys jingled in my hand as I approached my door. Something felt off. The lock was scratched, the door slightly ajar. My heart slammed against my ribs. I know I locked it this morning. I always do. I stood frozen, rain dripping down my neck, my breath shallow. Slowly, I pushed the door open. Inside, my living room was a wreck. Books torn from shelves, cushions slashed, papers scattered like confetti. On the far wall, in jagged red spray paint, was a single word, a slur so vile it made my stomach lurch. I stumbled back, my knees weak, fumbling for my phone. My fingers shook as I dialed 911. Someone broke into my apartment, I said, my voice barely steady. It's trashed. There's writing on the wall. The dispatcher's calm voice told me to wait outside, that officers were on the way. I backed out, my eyes locked on that hateful word, my chest tight with fear and rage. I stood under the awning, rain pounding the pavement, my mind racing. Ethan, it had to be him, or Emma. Who else would do this? The police arrived, their flashing lights cutting through the dusk. 2 officers, a man and a woman, took my statement. I showed them the photos from work, the notes, the broken keychain, the Bible verse. I think it's my co-worker, I said, my voice shaking. He's been targeting me since I refused to help with his honeymoon. The male officer, Officer Daniels, raised an eyebrow. You got any proof it's him? I shook my head, frustration burning my throat. No, but it's too specific. It's personal. They dusted for prints, took pictures, but their faces told me they weren't hopeful. Could be a random break-in, the woman, Officer Lee, said. Capitol Hill's had some vandalism lately. I wanted to scream. Random? With that word on my wall? But I just nodded, too exhausted to argue. They suggested I stay somewhere else for a few days. Just to be safe, Daniel said, his tone neutral. I felt like I was in a nightmare, one where no one believed me. I called my friend Sarah, who lived across town in Ballard. Can I crash at your place? I asked, my voice cracking. Of course, she said, no questions asked. I grabbed a bag, threw in some clothes, and drove to her house, checking my rearview mirror the whole way. That night, I lay on her couch, staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying the scene, the slashed cushions, the spray paint, the violation of my space. I felt exposed, like nowhere was safe anymore. The next morning, I called a locksmith to change my locks and started researching security cameras. My savings were tight, but I couldn't afford to skip this. Every creak of Sarah's house made me jump. I kept my phone close, half expecting another call from Ethan or Emma. When my phone did buzz, it was a text from an unknown number. You should have helped us. My blood ran cold. I screenshotted it, added it to my evidence folder. Was it them? I had no proof, but the timing wasn't a coincidence. I didn't go to work that day. I couldn't face Ethan, couldn't walk into that office knowing he might have been in my home. Instead, I sat at Sarah's kitchen table, my laptop open, typing up every detail of the break-in. My hands trembled as I uploaded photos of the damage. I felt like I was drowning, but I wasn't going to let this go. Ethan and Emma thought they could scare me into silence. They were wrong. I couldn't keep living in fear. The break-in pushed me over the edge. The next day, I called a lawyer, Ms. Harper, whose name I'd found through a friend. Sitting in her small office in downtown Seattle, I poured out everything: Ethan's betrayal, the workplace harassment, the notes, the break-in, the slur on my wall. My voice shook, but she listened, her pen scratching notes. This is a strong case for workplace harassment and possibly a civil suit for the break-in, she said, her eyes steady. But it won't be easy. You'll need every piece of evidence. I nodded, my jaw tight. I'd been collecting it for weeks. We built the case piece by piece. My phone was a goldmine: photos of the notes, the broken keychain, the spray-painted slur, screenshots of that creepy text. I wrote detailed accounts of every interaction with Ethan, Emma, and HR. Ms. Harper was relentless, digging into company policies, pulling records. She warned me that proving Ethan's involvement in the break-in would be tough without direct evidence, but the workplace harassment was clear-cut. They've created a hostile environment, she said. We'll make them answer for it. Back at work, I kept my head down, avoiding Ethan's smirks and Emma's occasional visits to the office. The harassment didn't stop. My car was keyed one morning, a crude word scratched into the paint. I snapped photos, called the police, added it to the file. HR called me in again, this time with a new manager, Mr. Collins. Michael, we're aware of your concerns, he said, his voice clipped. But Ethan denies everything. I slid my phone across the table, showing the latest photos. Then explain this, I said. He barely glanced at them. We're investigating, he muttered. I left, my stomach churning. They weren't on my side. The lawsuit moved slowly, each step a grind. When we finally got a court date, I felt a flicker of hope, but also dread. Facing Ethan and Emma in court was like walking into a lion's den. The courtroom in Seattle's King County Courthouse was cold, the air heavy. Ethan sat with Emma, both in crisp suits, their faces blank. My lawyer presented our case photos, texts, my detailed logs. I testified, my voice steady despite my racing heart. I've been targeted because of who I am, I said. Ethan was my friend for 10 years. He chose prejudice over loyalty. Their lawyer painted me as paranoid, unstable. Ethan took the stand, denying everything, his voice smooth, practiced. Michael's blowing this out of proportion, he said. I never harassed him. Emma backed him up, her eyes cold. He's just upset about the wedding. My lawyer pounced, exposing cracks in their story. Ethan couldn't explain the timing of the notes. Emma fumbled when asked about the text from the unknown number. The judge's eyes narrowed, her pen tapping. The trial dragged on for days, each one a battle. My lawyer hammered at their inconsistencies, dates that didn't line up, witnesses who saw Ethan near my desk before notes appeared. The evidence wasn't airtight, but it was enough to cast doubt. When the judge ruled, her voice was firm. The plaintiff has demonstrated a pattern of harassment creating a hostile work environment. My heart leapt. I won. The damages were modest, $25,000, but it was validation. Ethan and Emma weren't fired, but they were put on probation. The company was ordered to revise its harassment policies. I took the severance package HR offered, a decent sum to tide me over. Walking out of that office for the last time, I felt a weight lift, but also a pang of loss. 10 years of memories gone. I drove home, the Seattle skyline fading in my rearview mirror. Ethan and Emma had tried to break me, but they didn't. I'd fought back, and I'd won. Not everything, but enough. Now, I needed to figure out what came next. Leaving Seattle was the hardest decision I'd ever made, but it was the only way forward. I packed my life into a few boxes, said goodbye to my Capitol Hill apartment, and drove south to Portland, Oregon. The city felt fresh, alive with its quirky cafes and misty air, a stark contrast to the suffocating weight I'd carried for months. I'd landed a job at a small tech firm, nothing glamorous, but it was a start. My new apartment in the Pearl District had a view of the Willamette River, and every morning I'd watch the water, letting it calm the storm still lingering inside me. The first few weeks were strange. I kept expecting to see Ethan's smug face or hear Emma's sharp voice, but Portland was a clean slate. My coworkers were kind, if a bit distant at first. I didn't tell them about Seattle, about the lawsuit, the break-in. I just wanted to be Michael, the guy who showed up on time and cracked bad puns over coffee. Slowly, I started to breathe again. I made friends, small connections at first, like grabbing drinks with a coworker named Jen, or hiking with a neighbor, Sam. They didn't know my past, and that was freeing. Ethan tried to contact me a few times after the trial. His voicemails were long, rambling apologies. "Mike, I messed up," he'd say, his voice thick with regret. "Can we talk?" I deleted them without replying. His words meant nothing now. He'd shown who he was when he chose to exclude me, when he let the harassment slide, when he and Emma turned my life into a battlefield. I didn't need his guilt. I was done carrying his weight. Nights were the hardest. I'd sit on my balcony, a beer in hand, staring at Portland's twinkling lights. I'd think about the decade I'd spent building a life in Seattle, the memories tainted by Ethan's betrayal. It hurt, losing a friend who'd once felt like family. But as the weeks passed, I realized something. That loss had forced me to find my own strength. I'd stood up to Ethan, to Emma, to a company that didn't care. I'd fought for myself when no one else would. That wasn't weakness, it was power. I started therapy, something I'd never considered before. Talking about it helped, peeling back the layers of anger and hurt. My therapist, Dr. Chen, had a way of cutting through the noise. "You didn't just survive this, Michael," she said once. "You rebuilt yourself." She was right. I was different now, stronger, but not hardened. I still laughed at dumb cat videos, still got excited about a good burger, but I knew my worth. No one could take that away again. One evening, Jen invited me to a local art walk. We wandered through galleries, sipping cheap wine, joking about abstract paintings that looked like spilled soup. For the first time in months, I felt light, like I belonged. I wasn't looking over my shoulder, waiting for the next blow. Ethan and Emma were ghosts, fading with every step I took into this new life. I didn't care where they were or what they were doing. They were my past, and I was done living there. Looking back, losing Ethan's friendship was a gift in disguise. It stripped away the illusions I'd held about loyalty, about who deserved my trust. It taught me to stand tall, to fight for my place in a world that sometimes tries to shove you aside. Portland wasn't perfect, but it was mine, a city where I could be Michael, unapologetically me. I'd found my strength, my voice, and no matter what came next, I'd never let anyone make me feel small again.